So teacher, I will read paragraph 145 process view of a supply chain. A supply chain is a sequence of processes and flow that take place within the between different stages and combine to fill a customer need for the product. There are two ways to view the processes performed in a supply chain. One cycle view. The processes in supply chain are divided into a series of cycles. It performs at the interface between two successive stages of supply chain. 2. Push pull wheel. The processes in supply chain are divided into two categories depending on whether they are executed in response to a customer order in anticipation of the customer order. Pull processes are initiated by a customer order, whereas push processes initiate, initiated and performed in uh, anticipation of customer order. Cycle view of supply chain processes. Given the five stages of a supply chain, all supply chain processes can be broken down into the following four process cycles: customer order cycle, replenishment cycle, manufacturing cycle, and procurement cycle. Each cycle occurs at the interface between two successive stages of the supply chain. Not every supply chain will have all four cycles really separated. For example, a grocery supply chain in which a retailer stock business goods and inventory and places replenishment order with distributor is likely to have all four cycles separated. Dell, in contrast, bypasses the retailer and distributor when it shall share directly and customer. Each cycle consists of 6 processes. Each cycle starts with the supplier marketing in product and customer. A buyer then faces an order that is received by the supplier. The supplier supplies the order which is received by the buyer. The buyer may return some of the product or other recycled material to supplier or a third party. The cycle of activity then begin again. The ship processes can be linked to the shore, make, deliver, and return processes in supply chain operation reference model. The SCOR model provides a description of supply chain processes, a framework, the relationship between these processes, and a set of metrics to measure process performance. The description of the supply chain in the SCOR model is similar to the cycle view of supply chain discussed in the session. Depending on the transaction in question, the shared processes can be applied to the appropriate cycle. When customers shop online at Amazon, they are part of the customer order cycle with the customer as a buyer and Amazon as a supplier. In contrast, when Amazon order books from the distributor to replenish its inventory, is a part of the replenishment cycle, with Amazon as the buyer and distributor as a supplier. Within each cycle, the role of the buyer is to ensure product availability and to achieve economy of scale in ordering the supplier item to forecast customer order and reduce the cost of the receiving the order. The supplier then works to fill the order on time and improve efficiency and accuracy of the order fulfillment process. The buyer then works to reduce the cost of the receiving process. Reverse flow are managed to reduce cost and meet environment objectives. Even though each cycle has a same basis sub-processes, there are a few important differences among the cycle. In the customer order cycle, demands are internal to the supply chain and hers in uncertain. In the order cycle, order placement is uncertain but can be projected based on policy followed by the particular supply chain state. For example, in a procurement cycle, a Thai supplier to an automotive manufacturer can predict Thai demand precisely on the production schedule at the manufacturer in now. The second difference across cycle relates to the scale of an order. A customer buys a single car, but the retailer orders multiple cars at a time from the manufacturer, and the manufacturer in turn orders to even larger quantity of tire from the supplier. As we move from the customer to the supplier, the member of individual order delay and the size of each order increase. Sharing of information and operating policy across supply chain stages become more important as we move further from the end customer. The detailed process description of a supply chain in the cycle view is useful when considering operational decisions because it clearly specifies the role of each member of the supply chain. The cycle view is used by Enterprise Resource Planning (ERP) system to support supply chain operation. Key point: a cycle view of the supply chain clearly defines the processes involved in the owner of each process. This view is useful when considering operational decisions because it specifies the role and responsibility of each member of the supply chain and the desired outcome for each process. Push-pull view of supply chain processes. All processes in a supply chain fall into one of two categories depending on the timing of their execution relative to an customer demand, with pull processes execution and initiated in response to a customer order, which push processes execution is initiated and anticipation of customer order based on a forecast. Pull processes may be also referred to as reactive processes because they react to customer demand. Push processes may also be referred to as speculative processes because they respond to speculated or forecast rather than actual demand. The push-pull boundary in supply chain separate pull processes from pull processes. Push processes operate in an uncertain environment because customer demand is not yet now. Polar processes operate in an environment in which customer demand is now. They are, however, often constrained by inventory and capacity decisions that were made in the push phase. Let us compare a make-to-stock environment like that of being an a future order environment like that of Ethan Allen to compare the push-pull view of the cycle view being execute on processes in customer order cycle after the customer order arrive. On processes that are back of the customer order cycle are thus pull processes. Order fulfillment takes place from rather in inventory that's built up in anticipation of customer order. The role of the replenishment cycle is to ensure product availability when the customer order arrives. On processes in the replenishment cycle are performed in anticipation of demand and other push processes. The same holds true for processes in the manufacturing and procurement cycle. In fact, raw materials such as fabric is often purchased 6 to 9 months before customer demand is affected. Manufacturing itself begins 3 to 6 months before the point of sale. The processes in the bean supply chain break up into pull and push processes. Ethan Allen make customized furniture such as sofas and chairs, for which customers select the fabric and finish. In this case, the arrival of the customer order triggers production of the product. The manufacturing cycle is thus back of the customer order fulfillment process in the customer order cycle. There are effectively only 2 cycles in the Ethan Allen supply chain for customized furniture. One, a customer order and manufacturing cycle, and 2, a procurement cycle. On processes in the customer order and manufacturing cycle, as Ethan Allen are classified as pull processes because they are initiated by customer order arrival. The company, however, does not place a component order in response to the customer order. Inventory is replenished in anticipation of customer demand. On processes in the procurement cycle for Ethan Allen are thus classified as push processes because they are in the response to the forecast. Key point: the push-pull view of the supply chain category processes based on whether they are initiated in the response to the customer order or in the anticipation of a customer order push. This view is useful when considering strategic decisions relating to supply chain design. A push-pull view of the supply chain is very useful when considering strategic decisions relating to supply chain design. The role is to identify and appropriate push-pull boundary such that the supply chain can match supply and demand effectively. The band industry provides another excellent example of the brand from the subtly adjusting the push-pull boundary. The manufacturer of pens requires reduction of paste, mixing of suitable color and packing. Until the 1980, all the processes were performed in lab factory and then can were shipped to store. The qualified as push processes they are performed to the forecast in anticipation of customer demand. Given the uncertainty of demand through the pan supply chain, had great difficulty matching supply and demand. In the 1990s, pan supply chain were restructured to mixing or color were done at retail store after customer placed their order. In the other world, color mixing is shift from the push to pull phase of supply chain even through haze uh, reparation, repatriation, and packing on can were still performed in the push phase. The result is that customers are only able to get the color of their choice, whereas total pan inventory across the supply chain has declined. Supply chain macro processes in the firm. Supply chain processes because in the two process view and round out, this book can be classified into the following three macro processes. One, customer relationship management. All processes at the interface between the firm and its customer. Two, internal supply chain management. All processes that are integral to the firm. Three, supplier relationship management. All processes at interface between the firm and its supplier. Key point. Within a firm, all supply chain activity belong to one of two macro processes: CRM, ISCM, and SRM. Interaction among the three macro processes is crucial for successful supply chain management. The three macro processes manage the flow of supply chain products and funds required to generate, receive, and fulfilling customer requests. The CRM macro process aims to generate customer demand and facilitate the placement and tracking of orders in include processes such as marketing, pricing, sales, order management, and call center management. At and industrial distributors such as Center CRM processes include the preparation of the color loss and other marketing material management of the website and management of call center check order to provide service. The ISCM macro process and to fulfill demand generated by the CRM process in the timeline manner and at the lowest possible cost. ISCM processes include the planning of the internal production and storage capacity, preparation of demand and supply plan, and fulfillment of actual order. At Challenger, ISCM processes include planning for the location and size of the warehouses, deciding which product and carry at each warehouse, pairing inventory management policies, and picking, packing, and shipment actual order. The SRM macro process to a grant for a managed supply chain for various goods and services. HRM processes include the evaluation and selection of supplier, negotiation of supply chain and communication regarding new products and order with supplier. At Chanter, SRM processes include and succession of supplier for various products and delivery term with supplier sharing and demand and supply plan with supply chain and the placement of replenishment order. Offshore, that's on three microprocesses in the end after serving the same customer. For a supply chain to be successful, it is crucial that the three microprocesses are well integrated. The importance of this integration of discussed in Chapter 10. The organizational structure of the firm has a strong influence on the success of future of the integration effort. In management, marketing is a chain of the CRM macro-process, manufacturing handle and ISCM macro-process, and purchasing overseas the SRM macro-process, with little communication among them. It is not uh, unusual for marketing and manufacturing to have different forecasts when making their plan. This lack in international hurt the supply chain ability to match supply chain and demand effectively, leading to dissatisfied customer and high cost. The firm should structure supply chain organization to mirror the microprocesses and ensure good communication or among the owner of processes that interact with one another. Thank you.